Hello everyone, I'm Xiao Gang. Okay, in this chapter, we will mainly talk about the WinSocket server. And this chapter is the last chapter of our WinSocket series, right? Previously, we have all covered the client side. Now we are going to build a server ourselves. The content of this section is mainly to discuss with you the large world of MMOARPG, the server architecture of an open world. Before we start, you need to have a clear understanding. That is, this chapter is mainly to broaden your horizons, to broaden your perspective. And this chapter is not a standard commercial code, nor is it a commercial architecture. It's not that after you get this material, you can make a game with hundreds of millions or tens of millions in revenue. I think the gap is still quite large, because this is something I haven't delved deeply into either. That is, if you haven't been in contact with 20K before, if you don't have at least 2 to 3 years of this kind of online game development experience, don't go deep into this stuff, because you won't be able to figure it out or understand it. So the correct approach for you is to first learn, join a company, see how these mature companies do things. Okay, so the focus of this chapter is mainly on our WeChat communication. But based on this communication, how do we put it into practice? How to use it? So we definitely have such a server architecture. So at this point, we will expand a bit for everyone regarding this kind of MMORPG server architecture. Okay, this confirms that this is the knowledge in this area. Everyone listen, get a basic understanding, and then just know how to use this plugin. As for this knowledge, it is actually taken from this chapter. However, for this chapter, we mainly record it casually. During development, we are here now. After the iteration, I will explain it again from the beginning for everyone. Expand on it. That should be good as well. As for this plugin, it is actually in the marketplace. It is the PT, okay? We will just use this one. I will mainly guide everyone through writing this plot card from scratch and get to know Unreal Server architecture. We haven't covered Unreal's network server yet. I will cover it later if there's a chance. So if there's some support here, you might not understand it clearly. What is a deleted server? What is a listen server? What is standalone? What is a client? It's okay if you don't fully understand. Just have a general impression in your mind. Okay, so before we talk about that, let's first talk about how you should learn. There are some materials, right? First of all, we explained earlier. The sloppy server, Wally, Kali, this piece of knowledge, you should have mastered. You know, mainly WebSocket. You have also mastered. We will guide you. Road to WebSocket. One is speech recognition and one is speech synthesis. So this WebSocket mainly comes with a server. We can communicate with the server. This forms a closed loop for you. Then there are some regarding this. Some knowledge about servers. So you can see here on this Excel, some items are marked in red. Only after mastering all of these can you say you have a certain understanding of excellent networks and excellent servers. You can see, right, these articles, well, they are too complex. We have no way to explain them. Okay, so let's just take a quick look at these articles. And this part is not too different from our content. We just iterated a version based on this. Then the act of ours has gone through several iterations. And this plugin mainly focuses on, at the time, the main thing was just to get the API working. Okay, so we'll just take these unused things and turn them off for now. All right, so let's review again our previous HTTP architecture. Right, we have a LoginServer here. We didn't write this my circle on the back end, so just ignore it. Originally, it was written. Now it's not written, so just ignore it. So our clients can communicate with our LoginServer. We generally refer to this LoginServer as the gateway, right? Gateway, it helps us manage the external network because the part below is on the internal network. This part is on the internal network. So this knowledge is a review for everyone. You should still remember it. Then if we make it more complex, in this case, we add so after this part is on the internal network, we have a login server. We also have management. We also have game management servers and game servers and some other servers. Right, so between servers, we won't use HTTP communication because we will maintain heartbeats. We are distributed. Then you definitely need to use Where's Rocket. maintain a long connection. So this is our central server. In our intranet environment, this central server will record all of our services and then communicate and send heartbeats periodically. For example, if I want to start a service now or shut down a service, then I notify this service. I need to implement user login, registration, and payment, and coupon transactions, player save data, and player text messages, voice messages. So we can all work based on this architecture. But as you can see with this architecture, the general architecture is like this. That is, if you look at the architecture within a company, it's probably even more complex than this. And this is not our responsibility either. This is the server architecture, not our responsibility. We mainly care about on your game server, on your game client. Then this chapter mainly addresses this message. How communication works. Okay, so basically there are no issues. This is some of the results during our communication process. Showing that is how we send messages, how to receive messages, and how to maintain this heartbeat connection. Okay, so this is our plugin. We'll leave it at that. Then let's first, after we briefly explain, let's take a look at this diagram. Let's talk about it. These articles I mentioned earlier, you must study them. If you are truly interested in this area, you must go to the official YouTube, the official Jihu public accounts. You need to learn. The fastest way is to join a big company. See how big companies do it. That is, go take a look. If you want to use Unreal Engine to make Tower Fantasy, to make something similar to Genshin Impact, or something similar to PUBG, then do that. Black Myth, Wukong, combo version of Black Myth, Wukong, or this kind of ring. If you want to make these games, what you pursue must be this kind of thousands of people. That is, hundreds or thousands of peers, or within the same level, or tens of thousands online at the same time. Something like that. This kind of optimization is easy to do, but making it truly excellent is really hard. Very hard to excel. Currently, it's generally over 100 people. And then our optimization, actually, now, Unreal Engine is also constantly optimizing. He provided some replicator graph and this kind of fast array and these LS things to help you with network bandwidth. Such an optimization. Anyway, this knowledge is all very deep and very difficult knowledge. Before you reach 20K, you can temporarily just understand it instead of studying it in depth. Then before you reach 20H, you only need to master Unreal Engine online game development, how to do property synchronization, how to do RPC. Then the others, we'll do it step by step. Add them gradually, right? You can see they are all here. Okay, good. So that's roughly it. When you deploy normally, it won't be like how we deploy. Because we are all using Windows, deploying on Windows. Normally, they would definitely use K8s, definitely in a cluster setup. Good. We've talked for about 6 minutes with that background set. Now, let's talk about our official MMOARPG and what its architecture looks like. Obviously, here we have our excellent clients. These clients can be mobile phones, either Android or iOS, the 5 platforms we often mention. Do you still remember? Mac, iOS, Android, Linux, Windows, right? These 5 terminals, they can be accessed through a browser or through a client. So before we access, we need to perform a login authentication via HTTP. Only after the login is successful will we allow it to proceed further. Then after passing, you can obtain our, then for example, if you want to log in, now you are about to enter the level, entering our multiplayer scene. Before entering, we need a LogicServer. This LogicServer mainly means this gateway only handles login verification. The LogicServer is used to record the player's heartbeat. It checks whether the player has disconnected, or reconnection after disconnection, or when deciding how to handle it. It records the current player's information. Then at this point, you jump to this large map. This server, obviously this large map, is called the dedicated server. A dedicated server is a dedicated server. The role of the dedicated server in Unreal Engine is that it has no rendering on this server, no audio, no animations, and so on. This is called the dedicated server. So on the dedicated server, there are no players on its server. Understand this sentence. There are no players on the server, but players can connect to the server, thereby logging into this DS server. So we call it, this thing called the player is the client. So players can connect to the DS server. So usually in online games, I just one big map server after another. I have 1,000 players logging into server A. Then for example, Right now, we can partition it, or if there are too many people, we have them log into the server. Full server. This is our large map server, and everyone is working on this side. Working on movement, authentication, working on skill synchronization, working on the shop. All of these are acceptable. Then there is another situation. That is LS. With LS, you play those older games on Steam. I open a room. Then I am the host. I am also a player. Then other players are simply just players. They are not the host. So this is called a listen server. Less server means this player of mine is both the server and the player. He has a main player on the server. This is called LogicServer. The development difficulty and level of LS and DLS are similar. There are just some differences in details. We will talk about that later. Similarly, the client can connect to LS or connect to DLS. There are no issues with that. Then we also have a mode called Standalone. Standalone means single player. For example, Black Myth. Wukong is a single player game. It does not exist that other players come in. It's just standalone. That is what we often call single player. We won't consider the server. In this case, okay. So briefly explain this method. And you notice we are using Square. Here we are using HTTP server. You can take the socket, which is what we need to write this long connection, right? And then obviously you are LoginServer. We also used HTTP. This method hasn't been written, so just ignore it. And then with Jock in here. And this place is Unreal's Connect. Unreal's client and server. We call this homogeneous. That is within the same set of code. We build both the server and the client. We just distinguish them by macros. Distinguish them by development properties. This method is called Unreal's Connect. We haven't explained Unreal's networking method to you yet, because excellent network synchronization is very complex. You must master the common network synchronization methods. Only then can you gradually understand excellent network synchronization, how to do RPC excellently, how to do property synchronization. All of this knowledge is advanced knowledge, yes. Then if you want to make games, if you want to earn over 15K, then these networking aspects, you must master them. In fact, the knowledge we covered earlier is basically enough for you to earn 10 to 15K at that level of skill, because we know that at this skill level, everyone has seen the soft article I wrote. You know, do Blend is generally under 10K, 8 to 10K. And as for the upper limit of Blueprint, it's usually around 11 or 12, at most, no more than 15. But then for a C++, and real C++ is not C++. Let me emphasize again, it's not C++. Basic starts at 50K. As long as you are an Unreal C++ developer, even if you are a junior, it starts at 15K, starts at 10K, or mid-level and senior, it's 15, 20, 30, 40. And it goes up from there. And sometimes we open instances. For example, we have opened an instance now. We are going to play the instance level. Then at this point, through the central server, this is our permanent server, our permanent server. So this one is always maintained. That is to say, these are never shut down. Of course, we can dynamically scale up or down, but we will not shut them down. At least they will remain the same, maintaining a certain amount of redundancy to be available. Then sometimes we have some temporary ones. For example, I want to play instance A now. Instance A is a 4-player raid. So this 4-player raid, it might be open in reality. It is a temporary application. Only then did we open this raid instance. If you don't apply, we won't open it. So this opening can be done through our GM, through our programmer, through our designers to open it. We can also let players permanently access it to apply for some daily instances. So in this place, our players go through this LogicServer, this method, or within the main map. And then players cannot access this stuff behind us. Players can only access the gateway LogicServer and the main map server. So regarding what happens after the player accesses it, there will be a button on this side, or there is a team application. After the application is submitted, we notify the central server here. The central server then requests resources to temporarily spin up an instance. After spinning up this instance, once the instance is spun up, it returns the information to the central server. The central server records the instance information, then returns it to the LogicServer or the main world server, or returns it directly. Then the client receives the temporary instance information. Then the client logs into the temporary instance. So the UE connects to this temporary instance. It will connect to this DS. It will then disconnect from the main map because you entered the level. You jumped over from the main map. After jumping over, then you are inside this level. Ding, 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 ding. After finishing the fight, then you notify the central server and record our current instance information. This level is over. We need to settle the gold coins, settle the experience points. After all the settlements are done, you'll jump back to this. Then you need to request a new main map server because the large map server, maybe the one you were on before, is full. Or you want to go to another server. Then the central server returns the new large map server to you. Then you come back to this place again. This is the flow of one interaction. Then next time you want to earn dungeon coins, then we will open the dungeon coins for you. So the entire process is mostly like this for an MMOARPG. Open world online game architecture. That's roughly what it looks like. I think it's quite clear and simple. Okay, now let's take a look at the complex part. Take a look at Quora Game's own internal architecture. We have basically already got these things working. We just haven't done further optimization because the development cost is very high for this kind of thing. One is the bandwidth cost and the other is the hardware cost. If you are in our QQ group, you might see some indie game developers or some developers. We often discuss these issues. Basically, this kind of thing can only be afforded by big companies. And here, we have expanded on the concept of several endpoints. We have expanded all of these endpoints. And then here, there will definitely be some local levels because you need to have a login interface locally. There will be a login interface. On this login interface, you are definitely not connected to the internet. You need to enter account information. You might need to, or you might just want to take a look at our historical videos. Then we review the developer information, adjust the volume, adjust the sound level, things like that, right? So in this place, we will be locally, there will be some login and registration levels. After you complete the verification, then we will connect to the gateway server. After connecting to the gateway server, we will then establish a long connection to the LogicServer. These servers certainly cannot be scattered around. For us, of course, as in our previous situation, we have a central server to manage so many things. What if our central server crashes? To reduce the pressure on this central server, we can actually extract a dedicated LogicServer for managing logic servers, or a dedicated server for managing large maps. The main map is our persistent DS server. Then this instance server manager is specifically responsible for managing these instances because these instances may need to be these common daily instances. Because anyone who has played games knows daily instances and holiday instances are quite different. Of course, all of these must fully support hard reload. So how do we then this is the architecture we just discussed. Then we need to continue expanding because you can't just make games. You need Unreal Engine to be so powerful. All industries are using it. You might be working on digital humans. You're working on broadcasting. You're working on military industry. You working on healthcare, you working on communication, then you also need such an architecture. Then this LogicServer can help us implement other functions. For example, if we want to implement ifly text customized service, right? Then we can, within the LogicServer, wrap ifly in the layer because you're unlikely to put the key on the client side. You'd be letting others use your ifly account. Just 1,000 users. They all use the same ifly account. This account must not be leaked. So you set up a LogicServer. Put your key on your LogicServer. Then, every time a user logs in, they log into the LogicServer. After logging in, check the user's name. Check if the user has money in your account. If they have money, then you authorize them to use your account's ifly service, right? So that's the function of the LogicServer. So for those external integrations we have, because you definitely can't develop everything in-house. You only develop the most important and core parts in-house. Most of the time, you need to integrate external solutions. For example, our Wingsing Yin, ifly text Spark, and then those audio and video chat components like Yin. And then I mentioned we need to push streams. We need to do pixel streaming. In fact, all these things need to be determined through a framework similar to a LogicServer. And the most classic one is our audio two-phase. So, how to drive the digital human, how to do it through NVIDIA service, how to put our hot updated packages on Alibaba Cloud, and then allow users to download them. Then how to go to Epic or Steam to create achievements and leaderboards. Actually, all of these need to go through a LogicServer. We mainly extract this functionality here. So what is the term word? You see, in our terminology, there are database login servers, right? And then there are some other things. Web. So this web pit, you can put it on the client. Let the client encode and decode. But client-side encoding and decoding is very good. And sometimes you might need to store the user's dynamic avatar. Then you can set up a server dedicated to processing images. Put it on our cloud server. So I think this is really great because with this set of services AppShow can explained everything to you. Shell Gang started from the very basics of strings, then taught you about HTTP, right? Then he taught you about WebSocket, and then about servers. And we wrote everything in U++ code. Then when you need to switch later, you just follow our communication protocol, which is our message. Code data, this approach. You can replace the byte and friend with other languages, or person, or you can interact with Unity. All of these are possible. So I think this architecture is very good. So let's explain it to him again. Okay, we also record some logs. Then how do we set up a hot update server? Actually, we will put some of our client packages onto the hot update server. Then the client has a version number. After the version number changes, we will request the hot update server. Then we compare what files are different between our current version and the next version, or what extra files there are, or what files are missing. We just download the new files. Then we take the local files and perform an add, delete, modify, and query operation on them. Then we restart ourselves. So this is a hot reload, right? Yes, this kind of restart might even write a small program to restart, because restarting from ourselves is quite troublesome, because if you start this game yourself, when you launch it, it will affect your game files. LUS pack is occupied. Then you can only use a small program. Through the small program, let it download. After downloading, this small program will launch your game. So, as for Rugen, it is actually implemented this way. The new integrated some external services, it's very simple. Because our external service server, right? Then you need to integrate some third-party logins, such as Weibo, QQ, WeChat. It's called a token. So overall, this distributed service architecture for MMOARPGs is basically more or less the same. It's just that sometimes they need to optimize it. Because when you actually start playing this game, you might have, in a day, for example, tens of thousands of players online, or hundreds of players online. Then this instance has hundreds of life cycles per day, opening and closing here. Right? So this part is definitely placed on Linux. And there is a fork technology on Linux. If you're interested, we can talk about it. We won't go into detail. We are just running this on Windows to show everyone this process, so that everyone can have an intuitive understanding. Because all of this is advanced knowledge. All of it is knowledge was over 20K. Okay, basically, so what we wanted to talk about in this lesson is, okay, also, thank you all for learning this. This should be chapter 30 or 31. Okay, we will stop here for this lesson. Thank you, everyone.